What's going on, my planting people? I'm Lithius. This is my Anthurium Radicans cross regal, and it has seen better days. This thing was lush and bushy. It was the bushiest Anthurium in my collection, and now it's down to these two leaves, and even this one over here, which is actually one of the newer leaves. It is the newest leaf, has already started to deteriorate. So I think we're gonna have to go in and do a quick emergency repot. We're gonna have to just see what the situation is with this plant and try our best to save it. If your plant is like this and it is losing a lot of leaves, one of the first things you want to check to see if it's got any root rot. The way I do it is I lift the plant out of its pot, give it a good old sniff. I can't smell anything wrong with this. If you can smell something, smells a bit off, a bit rotten, you're most likely dealing with root rot. Now, although you can't smell it, like in my case, you may be able to see it. So if you come along here, you can see those roots are dark and black and they just don't look very healthy. That, my friends, lets you know that this plant is suffering from root rot, because those roots don't look plump and healthy and green as they should. And especially in PON, usually you get some really thick, juicy noodles, and we don't have that here. I'm gonna take this plant out of this situation, this pot, and we're gonna see what the roots look like once we take it out. Just supporting the plant here. I'm gonna just dump out all of this PON. They've seen better days, these have. Look at that, oh my goodness, ew. I will say that your roots should definitely not look like this. They shouldn't fall apart like this. This is sign of serious root rot, to be fair, serious root rot. A lot of these bottom roots are absolutely dead. Oh my, oh my. Okay, so we know what we're working with now. Oh gosh, look at that. Just so many dead roots. So one of the things you want to do when you're dealing with root rot of this sort of this level, just look at it. It's just, oh my goodness, look at that. Doesn't look good at all. One of the first things you want to do is just get rid of the roots. You want to get rid of every single root that is not good, and you want to go sort of just above the point where the root is rotting. So for example, we've got this root over here. You can see all of this, and below is very gray, very rotted. I would cut just above where the rot ends. So just go through and cut that off. So absolutely everything that is not green and plump, it's coming off. It's coming off. And then from here, I can just sort of work up. We've got some of the stem or the petioles where the leaves were. That it's not essential to take those off, but just if you want to, you can. So you can see here, for example, it's very brown and mushy. So that's gonna come off anyway. So I'll just sort of speed up that process and take it off so I can see exactly what's healthy and what's not. The good thing is that the plant is still producing new leaves, despite it being in such poor condition, which is a good sign. I'm quite confident that we can save this plant. I can't see, there's no pests in here. Sometimes your plants can start to go downhill, or the root rot can be aggravated or could be encouraged by pests in the soil. I'm confident that there are no pests in here. In fact, I don't think I've ever had any soil-based pests in semi-hydro substrate anyway, which is a good thing. So yeah, we've got two plants here. Let's see if we can sort of tease them. Actually, no, they are certainly connected. So here we go. This is what we've got left. I've taken off all of the worst offenders, so they're all gone. I will get rid of them. I can still reuse this PON. I think for this plant, I won't be putting them back into PON, because in my experience with semi-hydro, when you go from summer to winter, that hot to cold swing, a lot of the plants just don't adjust very well. And I think this is the case for this plant. So as much as possible, although I have absolutely loved semi-hydro, I think I'm gonna have to start moving away from it, unfortunately. What my plants go through during the winter, it's just too much. I rather deal with fungus gnats, to be fair, than having to deal with this every winter, losing a lot of the plants that I really appreciate and I'm really fond of. This is going to be its last day in PON. I'm going to be moving it out of this into a very well draining but water retentive soil mix, and I don't know what that's going to look like yet. I will do my best, but I think I've got some coco coir here, I've got some PON. I'm going to include some moss maybe. The moss will help to keep that water in there. The PON and everything else will help that water drain out quite quickly. So I think that's what we're going to do. I'm even also contemplating, although this looks like it might be 2 plants, it's actually just one on a very long and sort of almost like a slingshot. You can see here, this is the original stem, and then 2 plants have popped off of that main stem. So I could look at maybe propagating this, so have 2 separate plants, and maybe just cutting the stem down a bit as well, and then maybe in the future this may produce another plant as well. That is an option. Another reason I'm considering this is because it's so tall. I just want to make sure that I actually have a pot that can actually fit this. This is the pot that this was in, so it could potentially go in here, but then you still got quite a lot of exposed stem there. So I think we may have to cut this down ever so slightly and then just stick this in the propagation box and see what happens. I think that might be it for today. I've got some fungicide, and that just kills off any fungus. It's great stuff. I'm going to spray the roots of the plant, just if it lets me, just like so. I'm not going to leave this on. I'm actually going to wash it off. I'm just spraying it so that if there's anything there, that it can just, in the first instance, start to kill it off. Now, usually I would use hydrogen peroxide. I don't have any available. If you do, it's much better than this, I would suggest. So now that's here, I'm just going to leave this maybe for a couple of minutes, maybe 5 to 10 minutes, just to sort of work and kill that sort of surface fungus, which is often the cause of your root rot. So hopefully that will kill that off. I will wash it off, and then I'll start to pot this up into its new home. Okay, so the plant is washed and cleaned, as is the pot. The plant is probably going to be a bit too tall for this pot, so I'm going to have to consider cutting this down. And the growing behavior of this plant is such that it just sort of climbs, right? So you can see how much or how far this plant has grown in height in that time. So one of the first things I'm going to do is separate these 2. So I believe this is the main stem, this plant here, because if you look at the direction of growth, of travel, it sort of goes up that way. So I'm going to cut this one off of that stem. Try not to damage any more roots. Okay, there we go. So that's one plant off, and this is the main stem. So in terms of how far down I want this to go, I think I'm going to cut it just to below these roots here, because you can see these are nice and plump and green, whereas the ones underneath are a little bit more yellow. So I think I'm going to just propagate that to about that height. All right, so there we go. That's the base. We'll see if that chunk, if we can get any growth out of this chunk. I'm not 100% hopeful, but you know, more surprising things have happened. So there we go. Here's one plant, and you can see now that's going to fit nicely in here. And then we've got this one over here. This probably can fit fully in here, but again, just for that, I don't know with this one actually, because this leaf is sort of dying off. I want to keep as many of these roots on as possible, because with this one, this leaf is still in okay condition. It's still in good enough condition that it can help this plant to keep on growing. But with this one, this leaf is going to fall off any day now. So I'm thinking maybe I will just cut my losses here and just leave this plant at this level here, maybe. Yeah, we'll just leave it here for now. I think that's the best decision. And then we will just pot this one in a grow bag with some sphagnum moss and see what happens. So I've got my soil mix here, which is a mix of Cococoya, which is a very coarse grade one. I've got some sphagnum moss, which is quite a bit of sphagnum moss, and I like to use really good sphagnum moss in this as well because it holds onto that water. And I've got some Soil Ninja semi-hydro mix in here also. What I'm aiming with this soil mix is to have a really good, well-draining soil mix. I don't want that water to sort of sit in there and puddle and pool. What I want is so that water can go through, but the soil is also able to hold on to that because it's an Anthurium. They don't like to go dry. So hopefully this balance is right for the plant. So let's get potting. As always, we're going to start with a base layer of substrate, just like so. I think that is more than enough, more than sufficient. We're going to get our plants. We're going to just place them in the pot, making sure that they come up to the right level, just below the lip of the pot. And to be fair, if I can even get them to go a little bit lower, that will be great. And then we backfill, just like so. Give the pot a good little tap. That way we know that the roots, there's no air pockets in here either, because you don't want that in your plant. So we just get that in and voila, here we go. This is the plant. It's potted up. I'm quite happy with the way this has turned out. I may just go and just add in a little bit more soil because it's a little bit low, but I kind of don't mind too much because as this plant grows, I can then sort of just fill up or just backfill that a little bit more as it grows. And that way, we're always encouraging the roots that are growing above the soil to grow back into the soil, just strengthening the plant. So what we'll do is we'll now just give the plant a really good deep watering, just like so. When that's done, we're gonna just set the plant back exactly where it was before so that there's not too much of a shock. This plant was directly under a grow light. It was getting access to great light. So hopefully that it can just sort of just go back into the rhythm that it was in before it started to suffer from that root rot. But that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. I will certainly be back with an update on this plant and I will keep you posted on its development. But as always, keep planting.